Welcome to Shop Talk Live, brought to you by Tools Garage. I'm your host, Dave the Car Guy. Join us today as we dive into the world of car care and industry trends. Whether you're an enthusiast or just have a daily driver, we got you covered. Let's kick off today's episode. What's up, everybody? Dave the Car Guy. That's right. That time of the week again, Shop Talk. This week, I have an awesome guest I've been trying to get on the show for the last 5 years. Mr. Dan Freitas of Chassis Design out here in Valley Springs. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Hello. Good morning.
Dan has my dream job. Someday when I figure out what I'm doing, I'm gonna be working for Dan. So Dan, Chassis Design, what do you do there?
We do a little bit of everything.
Oh, you bake cakes and stuff like that?
No, we don't bake cakes.
Okay.
No. I have a hard time boiling water, but we do a lot. Majorly do street rods, pro street cars, pro touring cars, drag race cars, anywhere from your basic roll cage to full tilt pro mod car.
Awesome. And you build it basically from the ground up. So
yes.
A lot of people don't know what chassis is, because we've had a conversation before. You know, sometimes people come up, "Oh, what's chassis design?" So when somebody says chassis, what do you explain to them?
Well, basically the chassis is the frame of the car. It's kind of like the frame of a house, basically.
Yeah. Skeleton of your body.
That's right.
Yeah.
Correct. It's the bones of the car.
Yeah.
You build the chassis, and then you put the body on over the chassis.
Yeah.
It's like putting a dress over a skeleton.
There you go. It's almost like the piece of the car that doesn't get any glory.
Correct.
Because you kind of don't see it unless you're a mechanic and you got it up in the air and you're looking at it.
Correct.
Right?
When the car's all done, especially on your street rods and your pro touring cars, the chassis is pretty much hidden. Yeah, I mean, most people don't even know it's there.
Yeah.
They look at the bodywork and the paint, and they look at the interior, they look at the motor and exhaust and all the visual parts you can see. And nowadays the cars are so low to the ground that it's really hard to see the chassis. You got to kind of lay on the ground and look up underneath there to see it all.
Yeah.
And for the most part, most people don't do that. I mean, you can tell the real car enthusiasts, they'll get down and look underneath it, and they'll look at the real bones of the car.
Yeah. Well, what a lot of people don't know is that there's a lot of art that goes in a chassis, because a frame of a car, oddly enough, is not a square box of tube, right? There's a lot of engineering involved, because a square box can actually twist.
Correct.
So a square kind of rectangular car technically can twist too, right?
Yes.
So how do you, with any kind of power which will want to twist, how do you keep it from twisting?
That's where it gets really sticky. So that's where all of the structure of the roll cage, per se, roll bar, that's where that comes into play.
So a roll bar isn't just to look fancy.
No, the roll bar is not to look fancy.
Or keep yourself from being protected from rolling over.
That is the main structure of the roll cage, is to protect the driver. We call it the cockpit, if you will.
Yeah. But it has another purpose.
It is a major structural piece of the chassis. That is, you try to build that as a monocog, kind of like a bridge construction, if you will, so that it takes the twist out of the car and it stiffens the car up, so that all of the rest of the parts in the car will work like they are designed to work.
So when the twist happens, let's just call it the passenger side front wants to lift up, it will push on the roll cage, which will then push on the rear other side to kind of keep it from wanting to twist.
Yes.
In a nutshell.
But it's reverse of what you said. The motor always torques to the right side of the car.
Right.
So you're always, you always have more plant on the right rear
tire.
And that's where all of the technical stuff comes in with the four link. And that's, your preload, your rear steer, all anti-dive, anti-squat. It just goes on and on and on.
Now you're talking geek language. I love it.
Yeah, it really depends on what you're doing with the car, because every car needs to be tuned for what it's doing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not doing any justice.
Yeah. So a drag car, you really have to have the ability to have many hundreds or thousands of horsepower plant on the back wheel and not let the car flip over or twist in like a curly fry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it all goes hand in hand. You have to tune the car to work the way you want it to work, but you also have to tune it for the amount of horsepower that you have in the car.
Yeah.
So if you have a car that makes 400 horsepower, you're not going to tune the car the way you would if it has 15 or 2,000 horsepower.
Right. No need. Overkill.
Right.
Probably waste of weight.
Right.
So aside from the chassis itself, so you actually, do you build the chassis? I know there's a lot of companies out there that kind of build these, I don't know, called plug and play chassis, but they have them where you can buy a chassis like for, we'll call it a 55 Bel Air. You buy the chassis set up so you can road handle per se, and that's
right.
what you want to use your car for. I know that you've used some complete chassis from companies, but do you also build your own?
Yes, for the most part, like a drag race car or a pro street car, or sometimes even like a pro touring car. If it's a specialized chassis, I will build it myself. I won't use a kit. I'll do all the tube bending, all the fitting, all the welding, everything myself. For like a 55 Chevy or something like that, that's going to be a street rod or a pro touring car, if they want a new chassis, I will mock the car up on the ground with the rims and tires we're going to run on the car. I'll take a bunch of measurements at key points, and then I tend to use Art Morrison's chassis. I've been dealing with them for years and years and years. Very nice people, good to work with. I like their stuff.
Yep.
I'll call him up. He'll send me a drawing, and then it has all of the dimensions on that drawing, and I cross those out and I write mine in, and then I send it or I email it back to him, and it'll go through a whole process. He'll put it in the computer with those numbers, send it back to me. I'll proof it and sign it, and then they will start building the chassis.
That's cool. That's cool. I know Art Morrison makes a good chassis. Roadster Shop makes another company that makes good chassis. And man, it's hard to describe, but like I've driven some cars that they're original style cars, and I've driven that same kind of car with a professionally made chassis, and the handling characteristics are unbelievably different. You know, it's a noticeable change. So if you're building a car, you know, a good foundation is key.
Yes.
What's your favorite thing to build?
Oh, I don't know if I have a favorite. My favorite are the ones that are the most challenging. The ones that everybody says can't be done. That's the one I want to do. I want to do it just to say to myself that it can be done, and I did it.
Typical, right? Typical A-type.
I like the ones. I like the ones with the most engineering in them.
Yes.
I don't like the cookie cutter. They're too boring for me. It's too easy for me to do.
Yeah.
I like something that challenges me, that makes me step out of my box. something that I can design and
put your name on it.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, I love it. So what brought you out here doing this in Valley Springs?
Oh, that's a pretty good question. I had a shop behind my house in Castro Valley, and I just outgrew the shop. I was landlocked. I couldn't add anymore. I couldn't do anymore. Buildings were just way too expensive in the Bay Area. It's just too packed, too much hustle and bustle. I wanted to start leaning towards retirement. However, that was a 357 Magnum shot in the foot. Yeah, that's not happening anytime soon. But before I put my building up in Castro Valley, I had a flat bottom, and I used to come up here to Hogan every single weekend. And I was looking for property then. And I just decided I was going to sell my place in Castro Valley and move to Valley Springs and get some acreage and put a new shop up. And that's kind of what I did.
It is. It's a great shop. I mean, it's a beautiful building. It's nicely appointed for functionality. Every time I go there, I'm like a kid in a candy store. I'm just like, someday I'm going to be here. Man, that's awesome. So, what's funny is you said when you were working in the Bay Area, you worked for a company called Mole, right? Or you worked for...
Yes, it's really funny how that happened. I had my business at the time. I've been in business since 1990, but I have been doing this stuff my whole life. I've been in the garage with my dad since I was old enough to walk. My dad has been building his own cars and drag racing since he was 15 years old.
Awesome.
So
lineage. That's
where the passion comes from. That's where the ability to do it comes from.
Yeah.
And I've had my business since 1990, and I built back in, I'm going to say 2000 or so. I built what back then was not called Pro Touring. I built a Pro Touring car back then. I took a 190 500 SL Mercedes, the same body as a Gullwing, but it was a convertible. It was not a Gullwing. And I took the body off of the stock chassis, took all the floor out of it, and I built an all round tube chromoly chassis for it with a small block and twin turbos on it.
Holy.
Yeah, with a 400 turbo and a gear vendors, and I designed the whole chassis, and I it had a Hillebrand quick change rear end in it with a 4-bar system on it, except the 4-bar, the way that I designed it so that it was a 4-bar and it would be comfortable and ride on the street, but you could also change the pickup points in the front and make it work like a drag race 4-link. And
back in the day.
Back in the day. And I had finished the car, and I was trying to find somebody to do bodywork and paint on it. And everybody told me, call Steve Mole. Call Steve Mole. So I called Steve Mole, and he came over to look at the car, and he was like, so what did you do on this car? I said, whatever your eye can see, I did. And he's like, you built this whole car? I said, yes, I did. I did everything on it, including the billet front spindles. That's my design, and I made those. And he's like, okay. So we continued on talking about the bodywork and paint. And then when he leaves, he's like, I think you need to come work for me. And I just kind of chuckled. Like, well, I have my own business already.
Yeah.
So it got to be where I would see him at all the car shows, and he was on it. He was like, when are you coming to work for me? When are you coming to work for me? And I was at a good guy show, and we got to know each other pretty well and talk all the time. And he's like, "Hey, I'm going to send you a proposal, and I want you to come work for me." I said, "Okay, fine, send it." So he sent me one, and I looked at it, and it wasn't anything that would make me want to go work for him instead of be at my place. So he called me a couple weeks later, and I said, "Yeah, I looked at it, but it's nothing that entices me."
Yeah.
And he says, "Oh, whoa, hold on. That was just a starting point. You need to cross that out and put what you got to have and send it back to me." So I did. And oddly enough, he called me and he's like, "Can you start Monday?" And I went, okay, now what do I do? Well, it happens. I had an employee at the time, great employee. One of those employees that you just cannot find today.
Yeah.
So
they're out there.
They're out there, but they're hard.
Yes,
so
they
he
definitely
ran,
are.
he worked and ran the business during the day while I worked at Moles full time. And I got off at 4 o'clock. I would go to the shop and I would work till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning at the shop. Then I would get up and go to Moles, and that's how it happened. And I probably worked for Steve for about 10 years.
Wow.
And then I went back to my place full time. So
Now,
that's how that started.
That's how you recruit right there. Good job, Steve.
And I still talk to Steve all of the time. And I still go over there and do things for them. They call me sometimes to go do their headers and exhaust.
So this is funny. So when I opened up my shop in San Carlos, we have a little alley. It's weirdly named Tools Alley now. But there's another business that has a driveway in the back, right across from my shop. And when we first moved there, it was a pattern maker. He had a giant wood lathe. He used to make stuff for, the military, for one-off pieces. He'd make the pattern out of wood, and then they would use it for whatever. There was a truck bed made out of aluminum where he made a big solid wood tonneau cover for it. And I can't remember what year it was, but it was, and he doesn't really tell you what he's doing stuff for, because some of the time he can't. But he was like, "Oh, this is for somebody named Steve Mole," or something like that. It was a custom bodied pickup truck out of all aluminum, I believe, and this wood tonneau cover that was powered, lifted all the way up, was what this guy Mike, the pattern maker, was building. And I think that I remember trying to look it up, and I think the truck was either root beer brown or a green. I can't remember, but it was a really neat looking truck, like a little small Chevy pickup truck kind of thing. But it was a full custom body, and I never heard of Steve Mole until that job. And then later, when you said, "Oh yeah, I worked for Steve Mole."
Yeah.
So tripped, but I saw the vehicle and I was like, "Wow, this is sweet. This is some cool fab work." It was pretty awesome. I didn't get to see the whole truck. It was just the bed, but yeah, it was pretty awesome. So your dad is your inspiration. He was into drag racing. He got you into it. You obviously you have the DNA for it anyway. I mean, that's part of the battle. We've had tradesman conversations before, and for me in my field, I can tell. I can tell, sadly, in a couple minutes how that works for people, just by watching them just take something apart, how they take it apart, how they put the bolts, how they're, it's just, you can tell. Yeah. Some people, that's not a trained thing. That's how their brain works.
It's a gift. It really is.
Yeah.
And it comes to me naturally, and I've fortunate that I've had it all my life. and somewhat unfortunate at times, but yeah, it's definitely a gift and a talent. And, you know, you gotta, some people say I'm an artist. I don't see that, but I just see it as doing my job.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
It's art. It's art. They're right. They're right. Like, I don't get to do it at the level that you do, but I've we'll call it built some cars, but not really. I don't build a chassis, but I've changed a lot of cars from a weird riding old vehicle to something of caliber that can be really driven well on the road today.
Yeah.
And it's art. Because, you know, anybody can kind of take on and off parts, and they have lots of different kind of parts, and sometimes you have to make some parts, but how it all goes together is art. Because I've come across vehicles that are like, hey, there's a lot of cool stuff on this, but it's not right. It's not right. It's not artistically put together properly, if that makes sense. So
yes,
yeah, what you do is art. And the framework that you do, you know, I mentioned this earlier, is like the frame is one of those things you don't see. It's the bones. It's the studs behind the wall you do not see. But when you do see it, it should look good. And you can tell when you look inside, you look at your frame, you see the welds, how the welds look, the shape of the things. You're just like, that is art. That's art. It should look good.
Well, thank you.
You know, when I bought my first house, and it was I turned it into a rental house. It was my first like purchase of a rental property, and it was bad. It was not. It was what I could afford, right? It was just not a nice house. It was shitty. And I remember when I did my first remodel, I remodeled the kitchen, so I've taken off the sheetrock and stuff, and I'm looking at all the structure behind it, and I'm just like, what? Who did this? You know, do they not have a tape measure? What the frick is going on here?
Yeah.
So I almost went into construction because of that. I was like, look, man, this isn't rocket science, and man, that is poor craftsmanship, and this thing's been up for, 50 years. So I can only imagine if you do it right and, make it cleaner, and I don't know. Anyway, I was like, I think I might get into construction. I was very close. I was burned out in my industry a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I worked for people, and it's like you, right? You have something in your head that you want to get done. I'm no different. I'm like, I see it, and I'm like, I have these ideas, and every place where I worked, I'm like, I got this idea. Can we do this? Can we do that? And man, I will just tell you, it was like, no, oh, that's not a good idea. No, well, maybe we can try a variation of this. And inevitably, always, literally always, maybe not that year, couple years later, 3 years later, look what we're going to do. We're going to do this. And I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me right now?
Yeah.
Dude,
yeah.
I've been doing this shit for 3 years already, so it's that stuff grinds on me. And, at the end of the day, that's what I get to do now. So,
yeah,
anyway.
I was working for a guy named Ray Cunningham in Fremont back in the 80s, like 85, 86, building Pro Street and race cars. And a real good friend of mine, Ron Blanca, had a go-kart with, one of those 80-mile-an-hour go-karts, the ones you race.
Yeah.
And he broke the frame on it, and he brought it down to me, and I'm like, dude, we should take the motor out of this thing and build a downscaled dragster, like a junior dragster. And he looked at me and laughed, and he's like, that's ridiculous, Dan. Who the hell would ever want that? So I repaired his frame, 2 years later, we go to the Winter Nationals, and there's 2 junior dragsters there. And he's like, dude, you are so far ahead of your time. If I'd have just listened to you, we'd be rich right now.
Right? Sometimes those ideas are great.
Yeah. It just, I don't know why. I just looked at it, and I was like, let's just build a junior dragster.
Yeah, that's cool. You know, the fabricating skills is you know, sometimes we take it for granted, kind of, because that's what we do, right? It's work for us a little bit, right?
Yeah,
it's like,
it is.
It's what we do,
Right.
But like, there's been so many things that around the house or for somebody, they're like, oh man, you know, I really could use this. I'll be like, oh, hang on a second, you know, like a couple pieces of metal. How about something like that? And they're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
that's amazing. This is perfect for what I need.
Yeah.
Like, it's a one-off thing. And they're like, I could never build this. And you're like, yeah, you could. You could. I don't know. Maybe you can't. I don't know.
It's weird because it seems so simple and easy to you. It's like, geez, really? That's kind of a waste of my time. There's no challenge. You just do this and this. You're done here.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But to them, they don't have the skill. They don't have the knowledge. So it means way more to them than it does to you, because it's so easy for you to do. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and it does. And like when I've done these things, I'm just like, I really want to like take it and, you know, make it look a little prettier or whatnot. But they're like, no, it's awesome. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Yeah.
I do that on every single project I've ever done. I have never been 100% satisfied with something. I'll stand back and look at it and go, that is wrong. That should have been done this way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the curse of what we have up here.
Yeah. That's the curse of trying to be perfect all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it's one of those things. I can't remember which book it was called. It might be the Gap and the Gain, but like we try and hit our ideals. Right? We set up ideals and we strive to hit them, and either the frustration comes when you don't.
Yeah.
Because the ideals is your horizon, right? It's where you're going towards. Well, if you've ever tried to catch the horizon, good luck. It's never going to happen, because it always keeps moving. So you set it. That's your goal. That's your horizon, your ideal. And when you get to that point, you're just like, man, I'm not quite satisfied with that. But if you turn around and measure progress backwards, you really do have to at times turn around and go, man, look at what that is, or look at where I'm at. Yeah. You have to give yourself props on those things probably more often than we do, right? We're always you know, could have did, should have did it. But if you get that opportunity and turn around and measure where you were to where you are now, you get to see, man, that project is pretty sick. You know, I mean, it is. Mm-hmm. Could I have made it better? Sure, but look at it. It's whatever. Or where I'm at in life, man, I wish I would have retired right now. But turn around and you're like, well, look at what I've done. You know, maybe I'm not retired, but this is a freaking great feat of where I'm at. Yeah. You know, giving ourselves the acknowledgement of where you've made it's hard because we're always looking this way. But you know, you do got to give yourself that. You got to give yourself that attaboy at times. You're probably not good at it. I know I am not good at it at all.
No, I'm I don't know what the word is. People say I'm too, not timid, but I don't talk myself up enough, they say. Yeah. But I feel like I don't need to brag. I let my work speak for itself. Yeah. Yeah. And if it doesn't do what it needs to do, then I'm doing something wrong. Exactly. That's how I think that's how great people feel, right? Yeah. Right? Yeah. Yeah. That's cool.
That's cool. That's humility. Yeah, your work is awesome. You know, I've had you do some stuff for me, and I like doing all my own stuff. So, you know, it takes a lot for me to want to have somebody else do stuff for me. So there was no question on who was going to do it. It was Dan the man. So,
well, thank you.
So that's why I said, you know, someday when I grow up, I'm going to go work for Dan. Dan's going to be like Steve Mole. He's going to be like, Dave, when you coming? So what's your plan? What's your plan with chassis design? I know you got some people that come in and kind of help you out, and there's no reason why you can't really do this to where kick the bucket, because it's fun, you know. But you know, at some point you gotta figure out something.
The plan when I moved up here was to try to work towards semi-retirement, not work as much and hard as I did, still be in business and work, but just do, you know, fewer cars and have more free time to do what I want to do. But that I kind of shot myself in the foot on that one. And I don't think I'll ever retire. I'm not one to just sit around and watch TV. So I will be, if I am physically able and mobile, I will be in the shop doing something for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I just love it too much. It's been a passion since I was a kid.
It's been your whole life.
Yeah.
It's been your whole life.
Yes.
And it's funny because my retirement looks like what you're doing now. That's what I'd say.
The funny part about this whole thing is that I worked a regular 8-hour job, and my dad worked a regular 8-hour job. And we did this in the garage on the side to make money to be able to afford to run the race car. And that's how this whole thing evolved. It got to be so much that all of the fellow racers at the track and other people wanted me to do their stuff. I just was too busy, so I just turned it into a business.
Right? Isn't that how it works for most entrepreneurs?
Right. And that's really how it started, to be honest with you. It's just, you know, doing it to earn money to run our race car.
Right? Racing isn't cheap. You know, they say when you want to become a millionaire in racing, you just start off as a multimillionaire. Yes.
You start off as a billionaire and you run your car for 2 seasons and you become a millionaire.
That's where all those sponsors come in handy.
Yes.
So Dan, you know, we're probably in the same vintage of time, and I know that your goal is to kind of slow it down, have some free time for yourself, but you're very busy. You don't even have a website, so people can't even look up chassis design anywhere. It's hard to find you at all online. You don't have a lot of presence.
I've been fortunate in my career. I've never had to advertise. It has always been word of mouth, and kind of still is.
Oh, that's so huge. You have no idea what marketing and advertising costs. It's if you don't need it, man.
Yeah.
I wish I did not. I wish I did.
Yeah. Yes.
In
fact, my brother is into all that kind of stuff, and he wants to set a website up and put it on Facebook and all this other stuff. And it's like, man, dude, I don't know if I have the energy for that much work anymore.
Yeah,
you know,
right?
it just, we're pretty slammed as it is right now. And I have 2 guys working for me. So, you know, at my age, I don't know that I want to blow it up like that and have a full facility with 10 employees anymore. I'm not into daddy daycare anymore.
Show on velocity.
No. It just, it's crazy how you evolve and how you think from when you're young to when you get older, like at our age now, you know?
Yeah. Something's wrong with me, clearly. I keep growing, and I'm like,
well, that's that's
wrong.
both of us really, but
Something's
still, it just you just change over the years.
I know. I do value, like I'm a doer, so I don't know what free time really means. Like the other day, when it rained, the day, Saturday.
Yeah.
We were going to go to that car show, right?
Right.
And I looked at the thing and I'm like, nah, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to go. It says 100% chance of rain. I'm good. And then you said you're not going. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going.
Yeah.
Well, that was my plans for the day. And my wife and I were like, oh, let's just relax. And I'm like, yeah, this is cool. Dude, that was awful. I can't relax.
I know.
I can't relax, which is kind of scary a little bit. I was like,
yeah, it is.
I literally felt like I was on drugs or something. I'm just like, I'm super, like I got stuff to do. And I do have stuff to do, like my Suburban project and my Camaro, both in my shop right now at home. But I didn't plan to work on it. And, unlike having a big shop, I have to put everything away kind of in order to be able to walk through there because it's not big. So every time I want to start working on it, I have to pull everything back out, get everything set up, and then start. And that's hour or whatever of setup time, and then my 2 hours of free time is done.
So you see how frustrating that is?
Yes.
That's what it was like with my shop in Castro Valley.
Right.
That's why I wanted more room.
Bigger.
Now my shop is set up. Every tool has its spot.
Yep.
I don't have to move 5 tools to get to the tool in the back, use it for 5 minutes, and spend 3 hours putting stuff back so I can work on cars.
Yeah.
Now everything has its own special spot.
Yep.
You walk up to it, you use it. It's very comfortable. I like it. There's room around the cars to work.
Well
I
lit.
can stand back and visually look at stuff, make sure it's straight.
Yeah, it's crazy. I use that as my excuse to, not go in there because, if I have a couple hours, it's an hour of setup and then a half hour to put it all back. And I'm like, really, I got a half an hour to mess around with it. What am I going to get done in a half an hour?
Right.
I'm still thinking about where I was. So I use that as my excuse. But on Saturday, I was like, I waited I relaxed all day as best I could. And, and it was like 4 p.m. and I'm like, I gotta go work on the thing. So I went out, I moved all my stuff out of the shop and reorganized it a little bit, cleaned it up. And I worked on the Suburban a little. So I got more wiring done. I've got my radiator in, I got it fired up and running, determine what's needed in the wiring harness, what isn't. And then I hooked up a little throttle cable so I could press the gas, and I actually drove it to my front gate and back just to test drive it. And that was the first drive that I put on it. It was pretty cool. And then I had to put everything back. So at least I felt like I accomplished something.
Yes.
But yeah, I have to figure out how to take time away and then just go in there. Like maybe I need to schedule some time off of work. Be like, look, I'm not working today. Today is my day off. Yeah. Today will be my day. And I can probably knock out a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah. If I had a full day to just focus on my stuff.
Yeah, I do that sometimes. And then at the end of the day, okay, I'm not going to work today because I need to do this over here. Then at the end of the day, I feel guilty for doing that instead of working in the shop and doing stuff in the shop.
Yep. Yeah, it is. It's a weird
thing. And then you
thing.
go on vacation. Vacation for what? I go on vacation. It's all good for 3 days. I'm having fun. And by the end of the 3rd day at night, I'm thinking, okay, is this over? I got to go back. I got shit to do at the shop.
Yep. Yes.
I can't shut it off.
Yeah.
It's nonstop. There's
the entrepreneurial nightmare, right?
Yes. There is no light switch.
Yes. No, it is not. We're the only ones in our company that are 24/7 thinking about our business. So
yeah.
The time off is important. I am trying to work on that. I do have great teammates now. They are doing fantastic things for the shop. They're happy with what they're doing, and I actually feel like there's openings of time now where I could do something, but I do still feel guilty kind of, because if I don't have anything to do, I'm freaking out a little bit, and then I'm like, well, I should be there helping. And I don't know, sometimes at the end of the day, that's not help. If I'm there doing stuff, I'm in their way.
Yeah.
So I'm really trying to figure out how to take that time away, at least not turn this off, but put the blinder on, and then go focus on some stuff that I really need to do for myself, or want to do for myself, and get it done. That way I could practice for my retirement for when I'm going out and working for Dan in retirement. Right? So Dan, you got a lot of work going on. I know you have a couple people working for the billions of fans that we have watching. Dave the Car Guy. If you had to get another employee or another team member, what are you looking for?
A clone of myself.
Handsome, salt and pepper devil.
Oh, now I know you're blind.
So you need...
No. They need to be a really good TIG welder. They need to know how to fabricate. Most of all, they need to know how to read a tape measure. You would not believe how many people cannot read a tape measure.
I sadly think I can understand that, but...
And that goes for a lot of construction people too.
Yes. Yes. Well, I've taken apart some walls, so I think I understand why those things were crooked.
It's kind of amazing, and you can tell, I can tell when somebody has it and when they don't have it.
Yeah.
If they don't have the basics and they don't have the basic knowledge, they're not gonna get it. It's not something you can go to school and teach somebody. You have to have the basic knowledge, and you have to have the basic skill to be able to do this.
Yeah.
It's not, you don't wake up one day and just say,
I'm a fabricator.
I'm going to be a fabricator and build race cars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to see it. There's two aspects of that. You have to see it, and you have to be able to visualize it.
You do need to be able to visualize it for the most part.
Yes,
you do.
And then tooling makes a huge difference, because there's stuff for example that I do in my own shop. Mm-hmm. It takes me 2 days. Yes. You have a piece of equipment, punches that thing out in 25 minutes. It's one of those. There's a lot of those things, like in our world too. We have specialty tools that make doing certain jobs way better than trying to do it in your driveway.
Right.
But there's a lot of fabricating type equipment that you should have if you're doing it at a professional level.
Right.
It makes a huge difference. Like, the mills alone, just setting up a mill and I just got to quickly take a 16th off of this thing. Yeah, that's not me. That's getting my hacksaw out, or my grinder. Oh, is that, perfectly smooth? No, it's not.
There's, you can wrap up hundreds of thousands of dollars in equipment like that.
Easily.
Easy.
Yeah. That's why the DIY guys don't have it.
All the equipment I have, I didn't just go down and buy it one time. That has been gathered and accomplished throughout my whole career.
Yep.
You
can tell some of it looks like it's old school stuff.
Yes.
Just well cared for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
The older school stuff, like my welding machines, they're Lincoln 300s. They don't even make those machines anymore. You actually, if you break a machine and you need parts, you have to go to a salvage yard and get parts, if they even have them. There are people that still work on them and can tune them up, which I'm glad. But the parts inside those machines I feel I haven't welded on a new machine today that can weld as good as one of those machines. And I can just close my eyes and feel it as I'm welding. I don't even have to look at the weld. And I can tell that the machine does not run the same.
That does not mean don't use a welding helmet for those.
Yes, never weld without a helmet. You will be extremely sorry.
Yes, extremely sunburnt and sorry.
Yes.
So Dan, it's been a lot of fun. I know you are a busy man. I've kept you here for better part of an hour. So if you had a fabricator that came up and said, Dan, man, I'm a fabricator. Here's what I could do. You want to bring him on board? You're ready for another fabricator, physically and mentally?
Physically and mentally, I probably could use one more full-time guy.
Yeah. Cool. Hear that, people? If you are a fabricator, aspiring car builder, future Velocity TV show host, come out to Valley Springs. I'll introduce you to Dan the Man, and who knows, maybe next thing you know, you're Chip and Dan together again. So you're not easily findable online. How do car guys get a hold of you to get work done?
Usually it's word of mouth, and it's usually a person sees one of my clients' cars and the work that's been done on it, and they start talking to that client, and I need this done and I need that done, and they give them my number, and they usually call me and say, I got your number from so-and-so, and this is what I'm looking to do. And then it starts like that, and I just talk to them and go over what they need and, give them my suggestions on what should be done and shouldn't be done. But, that's basically how it's done.
All right. You heard that. So the person that you need to get a hold of is me. So I can refer you to Dan. No, I'm just kidding. Dan, what's a good phone number for you for people to get a hold of you?
510-220-7812.
Perfect. Y'all got that? That's the number that you need if you're a car guy and you want to have something built of high caliber. Dan the Man is the man. I've used him, seen the work that comes out of that place, and I aspire to be him. So, Dan, it's been awesome having you on the show.
It's been awesome being here.
I appreciate you making it out here, and until next time, I'm Dave the Car Guy, signing out. Thanks for listening to Shop Talk Live. For more episodes, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at Tools Garage. Remember, drive safe and stay tuned for more. Until next time, I'm Dave the Car Guy, signing out.